over the last 20 years as a fee-only financial advisor, I've developed a 7-point checklist to help people begin their retirement journey on the right foot. Let's go for a walk and I'll share it with you. And be sure to stay to the end, because the last two are ones that can save you tens of thousands of dollars. They're really important. If you fall into the category, you definitely want to hear the last two. Okay, the first one is, you hear me talk about emergency spending and having that when you're working, right? And the idea there is to give you a buffer, really, if you should lose your job or get a health issue, right? It gives you time to either heal or to find the right job for you. And likewise, in retirement, I think you need to have a 1 to 3 year buffer. And here's why. If the stock market is down, right? And you know, there have been just recently, right, during the start of COVID, the market was down almost 30%. It was one of the quickest drops since the Great Depression. It quickly recovered from that, but nobody knew that was going to be the case. 2008, 2009, during the financial crisis, top to bottom, the market lost over 50% of its value. And you want to be able to weather that storm. You do not want to be a forced seller in a down market. And if you don't have any cash and you have your living expenses, then you're pulling your money out of your portfolio regardless of what's going on in the stock market. So I think it's valuable to have that 1 to 3 years. I think 1 year is a minimum. I think 3 years is better, because when the market goes down, it typically doesn't do what happened in 2020. It typically takes the time for the market to come back up. So that gives you that buffer, right? So that's the first one. The second one is, it's really important for you to have a plan and start working on this before you retire. And really the plan is for your wallet, for your watch, and for your wish list. And for your wallet, what I mean is a financial plan, right? How much money can you spend in retirement? And what does that look like? You want to know what these numbers are, because you don't want to unnecessarily sacrifice and not spend money when you could be spending money, particularly at the beginning. That's where I see people sacrificing unnecessarily the most. And it's because you're used to putting money into your account. You're used to seeing those account balances go up. And it takes a while mentally to just get ready for, you know what, I'm taking money out now. But I would encourage you to think about that ahead of time and hit the ground running once you retire, because it's probably when you're going to be the healthiest and most active and most excited about retirement. So jump in with both feet and really enjoy it. Know how much you can spend. And it's much more common to underspend, but there are people that overspend. You don't want to be in either category. You want to know how much you can comfortably spend and then go out there and enjoy it, okay? So that's the wallet. What did I mean by the watch? Planning for the watch. Well, that's a term that I use for time, right? This way I can have the 3 W's, right? The wallet, the watch, and the wish list. So the watch is your time. How are you going to spend your time? What are you planning on doing? If you're married, are you and your spouse or life partner, are you guys on the same page as far as what you're going to do? Are one of you retiring but the other one's not? You know, talk through what that looks like as well. And then as far as the wish list, you know, what's your next passion? What's your next identity? What's your next purpose? You have your work identity, and for most of us, that work identity was established over 30 or 40 years. It can take time to go from that work identity to your retirement identity, and the more reflective work you can put in ahead of time on this identity question, the better. And I think for most of us, we have about 100 hours of work to think about. You know, right now it's, you know, who's Azul? Well, I'm a financial advisor, I'm a husband, I'm a brother, but you know, financial advisor is a big piece of who I am. And so I need to do my reflective work before I retire and say, you know, who am I outside of that, right? Maybe I'm a YouTuber, right? So who knows? But you do your reflective work, and I encourage you to jump on that ahead of time. A really, really good book to get you started on that is called Strength to Strength by Arthur Brooks. Okay, so that is the watch planning. And then the wish planning is the same thing. It's, you know, what are your passions? So the wish planning, what are those passions? What's your identity? What are you planning on doing in retirement? Okay, let's keep going. And remember, the last two are the ones that, you know, money's important. I think these other items are just as important, but the last two can save you tens of thousands of dollars if you fall into that category. Okay, the third one, ask yourself if you want to work with a fee-only financial advisor, right? Some people like to do things on their own. I would encourage you to work with somebody that's helped hundreds of other families make this transition successfully. Somebody that's an expert in Social Security, they're an expert in Medicare, and they can help you make the right decisions, right? With Social Security, the main question is, when are you going to take it? And in Medicare, the main question is, are you going to do the normal, the traditional Medicare, or are you going to do one of the Advantage plans? And it's outside of the scope to talk about that. And then from a retirement standpoint, you know, coming up with that game plan, how much can you spend every year, is really important. But then it's also important, where is your money? And what I call, what buckets are your money in? And by buckets, I mean, is it in a tax-deferred account where when you take the money out, you're going to have to pay taxes on it as ordinary income? Or is it in a Roth type account where you did not get the tax break day one, but then you can take the money out without paying taxes? Or is it in a tax me as I go account, a regular taxable account? And having those buckets set up so that you can kind of control your tax bracket is super important, and a financial advisor can help you with this. I should say, this is not financial advice for any particular viewer. I don't know your situation, right? These are things for you to be thinking about and to do additional research. And I just want to put these items on your radar screen. Okay, where are we now? Now we're on number 4. Number 4 is having, quote unquote, the conversation with your spouse if you're married, or with your life partner. But if you have a partner in life, it's really important to have the conversation. You know, the big questions: where do you want to live? What does that budget look like that the financial advisor came up with? Can you actually live on that? You know, what's important to you in retirement? Yeah, this, for most of us, this is going to be our last healthy chapter in life. What's important for us in that chapter, and trying to get on the same page with your life partner. And one of the things regarding where to live, you know, the world's different now post-pandemic. And, you know, if you can get a chance to work for a month, 2 months, or 3 months remotely from where you think you want to retire, man, that'll save you potentially a lot of headaches later. So if you can make that happen before you retire, I really encourage you to do it. Okay, the next one is your pension. If, you know, most of us don't have a pension anymore, but if you're fortunate enough to have a pension, find out about that. You know, is it adjusted for inflation? Very few pensions from private companies are adjusted for inflation. Sometimes government entities have defined benefit plans, pensions, that are indexed for inflation, but find out what that looks like. Be knowledgeable about that. Okay, if you're not 65 yet, in the United States, you know, how are you going to get your health care? In the US, most of us get our health care through our employer. And if we're not 65 yet, how are we going to bridge that gap until we qualify for Medicare? Figuring that out is really important. Also thinking about long-term care insurance. Do you have something set up for that now? Are you maybe self-insured through your health savings account if you've saved up enough money? Very, very few people are in that situation. So, you know, find out, you know, how you want to handle long-term care, because that can get very expensive very quickly. Okay, now for the last two. The first one is, again, this is a couple years out before you retire. This might be your last chance to refinance. So particularly your mortgage, if you want to refinance, you know, oftentimes it doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank. The mortgage lender wants you to have income. So if you think you might want to refinance now, as I tape this, Mortgage rates were lower a couple years ago than they are today, so many people are not looking to refinance. But just a heads up, if you do want to refinance, it's a lot easier to do that when you have a job. Now, you have to be careful, right? You have to be completely forthcoming in the application. And if you know you're going to retire in 30 days, that's probably something that is something that you should disclose. If you're not sure when you're going to retire, if it's more than a year off, and you don't know, then you're just working, and you make the decision. But those are two very different scenarios. If you know you're retiring in 30 days versus you might retire in a year or two. Okay, and then the last one, at some point you're going to have to give notice to your company, and this is the refinance one, and this one is one that can save some people thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars. Right? So let's say your bonuses are handed out on July 1st. I don't know how it works. Or your boss tells you what your bonus is on July 1st. I'm just making up a date. Do you want to tell your boss on June 15th that you're retiring? Maybe you'd be better off waiting until September to have that conversation. So that's one thing to think about. And then if you're at a company that issues stock options, right, you typically have a window, mostly it's technology companies, you have a window in which to exercise those stock options. So if you think you're going to want to exercise those stock options, that's probably going to take cash of some sort. So planning through that ahead of time and making sure you have that cash available. So I hope you found this helpful. If you did, I know you're going to enjoy this video here, which talks about average income for retirees in America, and this video down here that talks about 5 reasons to retire as soon as you can.